Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm creating a card featuring some products from the Essentials by Ellen line. I'm going to be using some of my favorite products from the line. I'm using the Mermaid's Tail and the Wonky backdrop stamp set. Now this stamp set is especially special to me because it's one that I actually asked Julie to make, and I love this tail. This mermaid stamp set is a little bit different than most mermaid stamp sets. Most mermaid stamp sets include the entire mermaid in like a little girl form. This one is just the tail. I'm also going to be using the Wonky backdrops, which is one of my favorite Essentials by Ellen stamp sets. It's one of those that just, you can use it on so many cards in so many ways. So I'm going to start out by embossing this mermaid tail onto some vellum, and I've prepped the surface of my vellum using my powder tool, and I'm stamping this tail down on using the Versamark ink. Now, I have positioned this into my MISTI so that I can just easily stamp both sides of this. You could absolutely do this with an acrylic block. But I find that when you're stamping on vellum, you can sometimes get that kind of slip and slide action going on because it is a slicker surface. So by using the MISTI, I eliminate the worry of that slip sliding action going on. So I'm actually stamping this twice. I've stamped it on one side and then I rotated it and stamped it on the other. And now I'm adding some Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder. Now I am really enjoying this gold embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. It's got a super fine grind, but the color of it is a really beautiful gold color. So I'm really liking it. I have the other Brutus Monroe embossing powders on hand, but I haven't yet got to try them. I've tried the white. I haven't tried the other metallics. Now, when you're embossing on vellum, you want to make sure that your heat tool is good and hot. So I let this run for a good long time before I took it over to my vellum. And you can see I started on the back with a couple of short bursts, and then I moved to the front to melt my embossing powder. And when your embossing gun is good and hot, you can see here how quickly that embossing powder is melting. When you're embossing on vellum, once it's melted, move away from the vellum. Just take your heat tool away from that area once it's embossed. Now, in addition to embossing on vellum, one of my favorite techniques is to add some color to the vellum by adding some ink to the back side. Now, you can definitely do this with dye-based inks. They just don't dry nearly as quickly as the COPIC markers. The alcohol ink in the marker evaporates really quickly and leaves that color behind. So I find that this is the best way to add color for me. And when you're wanting to blend a couple of colors into each other in such a small area, the COPIC markers are a great way of doing that. So I'm using the R02 and the R05 marker on this one to create this really beautiful kind of pink effect. And you can see I'm actually adding the ink to the back side of my vellum, not on the part where I have embossed, because this ink will actually etch away at your embossing and can leave some of that embossing powder on your COPIC marker nibs if you color directly over the embossing powder. So you don't want to do that. So I'm adding it to the back and I'm just blending those colors into each other by kind of flicking them into each other and then going back over those areas where the colors overlap. Now for the second tail, I'm actually using a rainbow pattern, and I will have all of the colors that I use listed over at my blog, so be sure to check that out. But I'm going from red to orange, yellow, green, blue, and then purple. And then I'm going to go over those areas once again where the colors overlap and kind of blend them into each other. Now, when I flipped this over, I felt like the red was not intense enough and the blue was not intense enough, so I went back in with darker markers. That is something that you need to keep in mind when you're adding color to vellum. Because you're adding it to the back side, you will get it will mute back a little bit. In the end, it's not a big deal. You just want to make sure that you choose colors that are a little more intense than the actual end result that you're going for. It's kind of like watercolor, how they dry back a little bit softer. So you want to make sure that you put a more intense color down to achieve the look you're going for. So I've used the coordinating die to cut out my mermaid's tails here, and I think these mermaid tails are absolutely beautiful. I love the way these turned out. And now I'm grabbing a couple of sentiments from a couple other Essentials by Ellen stamp sets. I'm using the Make It Beautiful stamp set, and it says Hello Gorgeous. And from the Mirror Mirror stamp set, I'm using the You Look Amazing stamp. Now, before I put these all down, I'm going to add a little backdrop for my image. This is just going to add a place for the image to be grounded. And I'm stamping this Wonky backdrops. It's kind of that scalloped shape onto my card front using some Dewdrops ink from Altenew. Now for my sentiment, I am going to stamp these sentiments onto some vellum. I'm going to heat emboss them again using that same Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder. So I've prepped the surface of my vellum using the powder tool once again. I've stamped those in Versamark ink. And once again, with my heat tool good and hot, I'm going to emboss those images. And once they cool for just a couple of seconds, I can take them over to my trimmer and trim them into some banners. Now I'm going to trim this down, and I am going to cut right up the center, and then from each corner to that center slit that I've created, and that will give me a perfect banner end or fishtail end. Now this particular card is a part of a blog hop, and the assignment was really to make a project that we felt kind of spoke to us. And there's several elements on this project that really speak to me and my style. In case you're not familiar, I love gold things. So I've included that on my card in both the embossing on the sentiment as well as on these mermaid tails. And I'm going to add some twine with a little bit of gold also. Now I love glitter too, and there's no glitter on these projects, but that is one thing that I love. I also really love vellum, and so I've incorporated that in a couple of ways on my card here with both the banner strip and the mermaid tail itself. And I really love clean and simple cards with a lot of white space. So I really feel like this card really encompasses who I am as a card maker. And then, of course, I cannot finish any card off without some sparkle. So I have used some glossy accents to add some dewdrops from Pretty Pink Posh onto my projects. And you can see there, I am just taking that needle out of that fine tip nozzle, and I am cleaning it off, and then I'm placing it back into the nozzle, pulling it out again and cleaning it off. I've had a couple of problems with these clogging on me, so I am going to religiously do this so that I keep those nozzles clean. Now I finished off the mermaid tails with some Pretty Pink Posh sparkling clear sequins in the 3mm, and I've just placed those all over those mermaid tails, and I think the end result is absolutely beautiful. I love that soft blue kind of wave in the background. It really gives a place for those images to land, and I especially love the way these mermaid's tails turned out. Now, I've created with this set before, but I absolutely think these are my favorite mermaid tails that I've created so far. As always, I will have links to the featured supplies in the description at YouTube, but head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com because over there I'll have more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies, as well as more information on this 2018 EllenHutson.com Design Ambassador blog hop. As always, thanks for stopping by and spending time with me today. If you enjoyed this project, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of my paper crafting video tutorials. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Once again, I want to thank you for stopping by. If you want to subscribe to my channel, just click that button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple other video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.